welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Forecast. I'm Trevor Scott with my co-host Matt Giraldi,
What's going on, guys?
and we are back with Team 12 of our 32-team breakdown from a fantasy perspective. We will be finishing up the AFC South with today's episode and getting into the Tennessee Titans.
So Tennessee, kind of a weird, tough year for them. They finished 6-11. They finished last place in the AFC South. They lost Derrick Henry. But on the positive side, they added Calvin Ridley. They added Tyler Boyd for some depth, and they also brought on Tony Pollard. And kind of looking at the draft and what they did this offseason, all of it was really to, help Will Levis. And so drafting an offensive tackle in the first round to keep him upright, as well as adding these weapons that we talked about before. It's kind of an exciting time for Tennessee fans. Obviously, we'll talk about Will Levis, but we saw the flashes of upside with him. Like that first game that he burst onto the scene and threw like 4 touchdowns. We know he has a monster arm. We know he's getting new weapons. So I'm excited to see how he progresses. He's not someone that I was like super high on going into last year's draft, but he was kind of a consensus first round guy. And obviously he was kind of the butt of a lot of memes when they kept showing his face when people were passing on him. But we know the talent is there, and yeah, we'll see what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the Titans should be excited. Titans fans should be excited going into this year. The fact that they decided not to try and trade up, there was no rumors about them trying to get one of these quarterbacks in this draft, I think adds confidence to the fact that Levis is their guy, that they're going to be giving him a legitimate chance. Going out and drafting a tackle with their first pick is just another excellent way to show, look, we are going to do everything we can. We brought in the skill position players in free agency and then put a anchor on the line in front of him. So giving him all the chance in the world to succeed. And if he is going to develop into a very good player, this team could surprise a lot of people even after going 6-11 last year. So Levis, he didn't get the start until week 8, but he had that major coming out party where he threw 3 touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins, 4 total, like 300 yards. Everybody's like, whoa, wait a second. Maybe there is something here with this guy. And that's when I got on board, because like I was like you, not really understanding the first round grade and like not really in on him. And then I was like, wait a second, this guy can play. Obviously had some rookie struggles, ended up QB 33 on total points, so only in half the year, which is solid. And he's going as QB 24. But I think with the rebuilt offense around him, right, getting Ridley alongside D-Hop, that's a very good receiving core. Having Boyd in the slot, another veteran that knows how to get open, can be a little bit of a security blanket there for Levis. And then bringing in Tony Pollard to replace Derrick Henry, I think that was an important move on the offense, because I don't know that Tajay Spears was ready to take over the full role, or if he's able to do a lot of the work on running downs. That's just not something we've seen. And he was drafted more as a third down back. So I know there's a lot of excitement because of the high efficiency that he might be the full running back. But I think from a team perspective, it was good to bring in Pollard. So going there to the running backs first here, I thought when Pollard signed, there was going to be significantly more excitement around the fact that he was going to be filling in Derrick Henry's role. But that was not the case at all. Everybody's like, oh, Pollard ruining Tajay Spears's upside and ruining his potential fantasy impact. And I kind of like Tony Pollard. I don't know. I guess I see bad offensive line, and I understand he was inefficient last year, but there's a legitimate chance that he takes away some of that passing down work from Spears and takes the majority of the running down work. And with a more efficient offense and a better line in front of him with Latham, there's a chance anyways that he finishes inside the top 20 running backs. He's currently going at RB25. Henry, in the same situation or a worse situation last year, was running back 8 overall. So I get the Pollard fatigue. I get everybody was super excited about Pollard, and the people that picked him in round 2 last year just got burned because he was not that good. So there's going to be a lot of fatigue baked into the ADP. People aren't excited to draft him this year. And I think that's going to be a good buying opportunity within the draft profile here of, RB25, maybe going down in round 7, round 8 could be your second running back in a Superflex 3 wide receiver league. And I don't have a problem with him beginning of the year as one of my starters. So he's somebody I will be targeting. Again, I'm not going to draft aggressively. I'm looking to get value with him, and looking at the draft is I'm very comfortable with him as my number 2, and I can wait all the way into the middle of RB3 range to draft that player. So what do you think on the running back situation? This is going to be a difficult one to follow, and a very interesting situation to continue to follow, just in the price of these players.
Yeah, I disagree with the Pollard take. I mean, you're kind of talking about his upside being a top 20 guy, but right now he's priced at, number 25. He didn't look good last year. Spears is kind of lightning in a bottle. And if I'm looking at those two ADPs, I'm definitely going to take a shot on Spears a couple rounds later. But this isn't really a backfield that I'm necessarily going to be targeting, because, the coach has said that it's going to be a 1A, 1B type situation. Yes, the offensive line is improved. Yes, we expect steps forward, but let's not pretend like this is this haven for running back. So those are two guys that, I'll definitely follow closely, but to me, it's going to be taking Spears a couple rounds later, because we've seen his burst, we've seen what he can do. But yeah, I think I'm just going to be out on Pollard, and like you said, it might just be the fatigue from last year and watching how bad he was and things like that. But
the thing I can't get over, right, and the reason I'm willing to go back to Pollard, everything that you just said about Spears is what we were saying about Pollard going into last year. It's like, oh, he's lightning in a bottle. We've seen him be so explosive. We've seen him work effectively in the passing game. That's why he got pushed up into that second round without ever seeing it before.
Well, he got pushed up because
we're
the starter.
1 year removed from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pollard will get back a lot of his efficiency because he'll be splitting the workload. I don't want to take an RB 25 that might be the 1B after a few weeks. I just can't do it.
Why not? He was running back 7 overall when Zeke was there as the 1B the year before. He had 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2022. And then when Zeke was gone, he took a lot of more in between the tackles. Maybe it beat him up more, but I don't know if he's going to be splitting the workload. We've seen him be successful as recently as 2 years ago. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm going to get burned by taking Pollard as a starter, but I'm much more willing to give him a second chance here, because I think that there's at least opportunity for him to be a legitimate starting running back. And if he is the 1B to Spears, maybe I'll be wearing that during the season a little bit. But I think that there's an opportunity here for a lot of production in a way that you shouldn't be able to get from RB25 in the draft.
Okay, fair enough.
Right,
I don't think we need to talk about Chigakwonkwo or
no tight ends. No tight ends. We did talk about Levis briefly. So just to reiterate on him, he's going as a solid quarterback 3, right? He's going QB 24. And in 12-team Superflex leagues, that's back end to QB2. So, he's right on that cusp of somebody that could end up being a starter in all Superflex formats. And again, not to belabor the point, and we can do this in every single video, but you wouldn't even really track Will Levis. You wouldn't even know anything about what he's doing production-wise, unless maybe you owned Ridley or D-Hop, if you didn't play in Superflex leagues. So seeing and getting to follow and watch a young, good, possibly good quarterback kind of be in the development stage of his career is something that makes Superflex leagues more entertaining. I know it can be frustrating. I know you end up without starters sometimes, but if you hit on guys like these down low in the draft, it makes it a lot more fun. So let's talk then quickly about the wide receivers here. We haven't gotten into Ridley versus D-Hop yet. So Hopkins finished as wide receiver 22 last year, and he was really the only game in town on the offense. So bringing in Ridley kind of complicates that, I think, in terms of overall production. I don't know that we're expecting a ton of passing volume out of this team. So, the targets being low within trying to project this team out is going to affect both of these players in a negative way. So Ridley's going at 33. D-Hop is going at 37. Now that feels really low for these guys to be going, honestly. They're both talented players. I could see both of them producing it'll be one of those situations where it's difficult to tell on any given week. But when they are producing, or if one of them gets hot for a couple weeks in a row, like I could see them being very viable starters, not being drafted that way, or being drafted as back end flex plays in a 3 wide receiver league even. So, I don't know how enthusiastic I'm going to be going after a receiver in this range of the draft, just in general. I don't know if I'm going to be needing, a fourth or fifth receiver during this stage of the draft. But if I was hunting receiver at this point, I think I'd prefer Ridley over D Hop. I think D Hop maybe just has lost a little bit of a step. I know we've been saying that forever, and he produced last year, but I think I would prefer Ridley over D Hop if I was on the clock in like round 10 or whatever, and I had to choose directly between those two. I would take Ridley.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, the more I think I'm going to be targeting Ridley just in general. They paid him like a number one. They want him to be the number one. All the reports thus far from camp have been very solid. I think he's going to get a chance to really build a strong rapport with Levis, while D Hop can kind of play that really solid number two role. So love his talent. Love Levis's arm. Again, it might be frustrating week to week to project, but if you get really into the nitty gritty with fantasy when you're setting your lineups, you're going to be paying attention to cornerbacks, defenses, things like that. So, I think I'm going to be taking a shot on Ridley, and at 33, I think I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, agreed. One thing I'll build on here, because this is one of these teams in fantasy that a lot of people are going to be discounting them because they don't think it's going to be a good offense. We saw it last year with Tampa Bay and with Houston, that a lot of their skill position players got pushed down the draft board because they weren't expected to be good offenses. Baker Mayfield taking over in Tampa Bay, and CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback, taking over in Houston, was kind of unknown. Those guys' values just all got pushed way down the draft. This team feels very, very similar to me to those two teams, where their position player guys are all getting pushed down, but they probably all should be drafted, and like maybe we're sleeping on this team a little bit too much. And I wonder anyways aloud at this point in the offseason if these guys are going to start to be pushed up a little bit in drafts as we get closer to the season, because I think that this offense could be sneaky good.
I agree.
All right. And with that, we wrap up the AFC South. That was the Tennessee Titans, and we look forward to getting into the AFC East. That will conclude the AFC once we get through those 4 teams, and we'll be transitioning over to the NFC after that. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys.